Welcome to Chung Focus. I'm Nelson Liu. This week we continue to explore the synergistic relationship between the federal and state governments, local governments and non-for-profit organisations in the delivery of support services to our growing migrant communities. Funding for initiatives such as language classes and migrant community programs come from the federal and state governments, but there's another equally important player involved in these programs for the migrant community. That is the local government, also known as local councils.
Local government is a critically important avenue for our local citizens. We are the grassroots of the local area for people to access our services and abilities. So we're the closest level of government to the people.
We provide a lot of services with our diverse community, especially in the multicultural area. So things like settlement services and access to services where people might not otherwise be able to find those services.
Many suburbs in Perth are made up of a large proportion of overseas-born residents, and local governments play an important role of understanding and meeting the real needs of its residents.
With regards to the service that we provide to the multicultural community, it's quite an extensive list. We're here to encourage people to access our services, use them wherever they possibly can. On the city's webpage, on both the homepage and all the pages, we have a very large button called Browse Aloud. When you press the button, you can actually translate into a number of different languages. It's quite extensive. Languages listed from the Chinese, Cantonese, Punjabi, Arabic, just to name a few.
Probably one of the best examples of federal and state government funding working together is our Kaleidoscope program. That's a program we started in 2017, and it's specifically targeted at our multicultural communities. Not only looking at the challenges of them finding the networks they need to be able to get jobs, and also things like being able to write resumes or different cultural situations they might find in a workplace they're not used to. But we go a step further and realising that not only are people unemployed when they get to Australia, a lot of people when they're trying to look for work become underemployed. So this is specifically putting them in touch with a mentor, and through that mentoring process finding them meaningful employment in their own field.
The wide range of federal and state government programs supporting migrant communities are in place to help in the settling in process. However, there remains a gap of access to the services because of barriers including a lack of confidence, language and simply awareness of the programs. The Metropolitan Migrant Resource Centre, or Mmrc, is a settlement service non-profit organisation that seeks to meet the needs of refugees and newly arrived migrants.
We often find new migrants and refugees are struggling to settle into the community and aren't actively engaging in programs set for them. This is due to financial, language and cultural barriers that aren't giving them the confidence to step out into the public light.
Meanwhile, Assets helps assist refugee survivors of torture and trauma. The organisation also runs multiple programs aimed at helping new residents of Australia settle into their new homes with as few disruptions as possible.
There are a range of issues that face culturally, linguistically diverse people and new settlers in Western Australia. These range from difficulties in accessing services, based on barriers within services. Many existing mainstream services that we access are not set up or ready for people who maybe have diverse needs, including language needs. There's also stigma associated with services like mental health from within communities, various issues to do with settlement, with housing, with ability to find a job, keep a job, and manage finances.
Like most other not-for-profits, Mmrc, Assets and Chung Association rely heavily on government funding for its services to run.
Assets delivers services to refugees, asylum seekers, humanitarian entrants and other members of the CALD community entirely as a result of funding from Commonwealth and state government departments. The funding we receive varies depending on the particular programs we run. Without this funding, we would be unable to support people in the way in which we do. For example, Commonwealth funding and state-based funding supports our counselling services to people who have survived torture and trauma. The impact of those services on people is profound.
One of the major events for Chung Association is the Perth Chinese New Year Fair. Without the funding from the Office of Multicultural Interests and the City of Perth, Chung Association will not be able to hold this event every year. For Chinese New Year, this event brings the whole community together. It's for the local community to celebrate Chinese New Year, as well as for all overseas Chinese who, especially this year, cannot return home to celebrate Chinese New Year with their families and to celebrate the local traditions and customs overseas. We also have our community and aged care branch, who also receive funding from the government and provide essential services for aged care and members of the Perth community.
Despite the many programs and services available to migrant and culturally and linguistically diverse communities, many remain unaware of where to go when they need assistance. Several local residents from the migrant community expressed surprise when told of the support of the federal and state governments behind the multicultural program initiatives.
My name is Angela and I've been living in Australia for about 12 years. Well, I was not aware about the funding behind all these programs at the beginning. It is good to know today's government funding in supporting all these good initiatives like the Chinese school, where my child can get to learn my own language, Mandarin, at affordable fees.
Besides Centrelink assistance, I'm not aware about this government grant. We are pleased for the government to take this initiative to support the multicultural events.
As Western Australia's lively and diverse migrant population continues to grow, the role the federal, state and local governments play in ensuring that these communities quickly adapt to their new homes is increasingly important. The faster migrant communities assimilate and settle in, the easier it will be for them to become active, contributing members of their community. And that ultimately is what will build a harmonious, thriving society.